This is the Sourceseeker Hour, episode 127. I'm host Baruti Carl Alexander. This is Education on Fire. Our seminar, very important about the state of education. We saw during the pandemic how important education is. We already knew it, but that re-emphasized it. And we're going to go through education. We have Dr. Cleo Wadley with us, and we're going to have quite possibly more individuals join us to talk about this important subject. Dr. Wadley, how are you doing?
I'm almost perfect.
Almost perfect. I can't see anything better than that. Almost perfect. We know we're not perfect, but almost perfect is a great thing. How long have you been a principal?
I've been a building principal for 10 years, but I've been an assistant principal probably for 7 years before that. And I've been in education for a total of 28 years, where I've taught at the junior high level or middle school and high school levels.
Okay, a lot of experience there. And as I've mentioned to many people, I've been in education 32 years myself. So we have a wide range of educational experience on this panel right now, and we should be joined by more individuals. Let me first say, last time we discussed, we saw things a little bit differently, and that's a part of how things work in the world. My aspect was it's critical, and we cannot necessarily look at the, I guess, the aesthetics, how things may look to certain people. We have to kind of get deep into the grass and kind of mow it and make it sharp and keep the kids safe. And of course, there's more ways than one to do that, but that is so important. And as I mentioned earlier, education is the value in society, cannot be underestimated, but it does not seem like educators get the worth that they would seem to deserve. Why is that?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I like to go back to in 1958 was the launching of Sputnik by the Russians. And when that happened, America freaked out and panicked. And they felt like, wow, we're behind in math and science. So suddenly all these corporate individuals and government got into education. Before that, government and business did not interfere in education. Education did its own thing. But once government and business interfered, they took over the direction of what education has come. And we've been on that path ever since. Then you had the report that came out about the state of schools in America in the 60s, and in the 1980s, and that even more that's when we have we saw the oncoming and onslaught of standardized testing in schools as a result of that, because it showed that basically America's schools are failing in the 80s. And we've been on that slope ever since, where we've had other government initiatives prompted mostly by business and corporations to address those issues. Now what we see happening is an attack on public schools in the sense that it's become a neo-capitalist environment now, where these neo-capitalists see that, hey, I can make money, or neoliberalists rather, see that, hey, I can make money off having government funds diverted to for-profit schools. And so we see the development now of for-profit schools where government funds, taxpayer dollars, are diverted from public schools to these for-profit schools. And so it's all just a big corporate business neoliberalistic attempt to devalue public schools. So we see all the media coverage and attention about everything that happens negative, every school shooting, every teacher that dates a student, every single negative thing that happens in a school. There's an onslaught of that in the media to erode the public trust in school. So as a result, when these laws and things are passed, the public largely goes along with it because they've seen how many school shootings there have been. They've seen how many teachers have slept with kids. They've seen how many schools are low performing due to these standardized oppressive tests. and accountability, how many F-rated schools there are. So when the public hear these laws being passed about how we're going to put in charter schools and for-profit schools, the public largely goes for it because their trust has been eroded. Instead of hearing about all the absolutely wonderful things that go on in schools, when you have a life skills student pick up a spoon for the first time, when you have a kid who has never won anything suddenly win an academic UIL debate and speech tournament, see, those things don't get in the news. See, those great things don't happen. But those are the things that, however, that are great, and which makes, I think, our public schools places worth saving. I feel are havens of our democracy.
You talked about business and I guess politics getting involved and so forth. That would seem to me to create more worth, but it doesn't. If there was more work, we would get paid more, as well as get more respect and so forth. But across the board, and you talked about the eroding trust, the media gins up, but the media is going to do with it wherever there is interest, they're going to gin that up, as well as there's always interest in schools. There's always interest as to, it's still attached to a teacher. Oh, that teacher did that. Oh, that teacher did that. And that can still generate interest, in the public chatter and so forth, as opposed to that teacher won this award, that teacher, you don't hear that as much. That's the teacher of the year. I mean, instead of, the state saying all of these are the teachers of the year, everybody gets $10,000 and parade us all over TV and stuff. We don't get that. So our society, I would say, is being always set up for the athletes, the entertainers, those things like that people want to pay attention to. It's like we are just expected to do our job and enjoy it. But when the pandemic happened, we saw how important teachers were.
Right.
And teachers weren't going for, hey, if we don't want to go back to school or we don't want to go back into the classroom because of what's going on, you can't make us and so forth. And you saw that groundswell happening of conflict and different things happening. You heard about TEA taking over HISD. What is your opinion? What is your comment? I would say that with all the backbiting that happened in politics, I heard about it all the time. The Hispanics, they had their coalition over here, blacks, whites, everybody fighting politically, and they had a principal that was fired, then the community had a rehired. So many things were happening. What is your comment on that?
Yeah, two things. One is that we all know that there's been political beef between the governor and the lieutenant governor with the mayor of Houston and the judge, Hidalgo, right? So there's been a public ongoing beef for that because there's different value systems there. So this is largely political. You have the state accountability system, which the state created, which the governor runs, TEA, says that HISD has a B rating. It has a B rating. So why are you taking over a B-rated institution? Like it's failing. Your own rating says it's a B. So, I question that right there. Also, I have to say that what we have to make sure that we're doing in our schools, we can't let our schools become failing schools because it creates opportunities for these, once again, neoliberalists like Dan Patrick and also Governor Abbott, who sees that this is the way I can give my crony, a guy who's never run a school, hadn't been in the school since he was in the 12th grade, suddenly give him $1 million to go open up his own for-profit school. When you have low performing schools, it creates that window. So what we have to do is, what I say, and I put this on the superintendents and the school boards, you have to empower your school leaders, that's your teachers, your assistant, your principals, to run the school the way, because they know how to do it. Those people in the trenches know how to run the schools where they're safe and kids can learn. But when superintendents and school boards don't empower those people to do that, you create failing schools. You're not going to keep good teachers at schools where they're getting called an MF. Like good teachers don't stay at schools like that. And if you, the neediest kids need the best teachers. So those teachers need super support. They need hyper support. That means when you have kids that are cussing teachers out, they need to be removed. And what'll happen, you'll see that those folks, when they're removed, the other kids are watching that and they'll realize, oh, that's a boundary that I know I can't cross. So let me do the right thing. It will transform your school climate. It'll be a place where good teachers want to come work. Because teachers don't work to get paid. They work because they love changing the lives of kids. But they're not going to go do that when they're getting called an MF and then the kids sitting back in class the next day. That's unacceptable to me. And the way I run my school is that you can't do that. You call a teacher an MF, you go into our disciplinary campus for a minimum of 30 days. Because I have a climate at my school where teachers are supported and they feel safe, not only physically, but psychologically.
I'm sure you saw the video of the student that attacked. I think she took his Game Boy and she was walking in the hallway with the Game Boy and he ran and attacked her. You mentioned about students calling teachers MFs and so forth. So much of that does go on in the best circumstances. It happens. What can we do? I know you said take them out and put them in 30 days, but what if half your campus until you turn the tide?
Let me tell you. Let me tell you.
Go ahead.
When I was first hired to be a principal at a middle school in Houston on the north side, I took over a school as a rookie, no experience. I'd been assistant principal, never a building principal. Well, I had taken over a school that was like that, where the kids ran the school. And when the school became, according to the state accountability system, what they called at that time, an AU, which is academically unacceptable, that's when the superintendent came in and gave me the authority to do what I needed to do. And what happened is I was able to put disciplinary measures in place where if a kid did something that egregious, you went to the alternative school, and you'll be surprised. I know you feel like half of it would do that, but I'm telling you, you're going to get about 10% of them. But what happened, the 90% will look at that 10% and say, you know what, it ain't worth that. And they'll fall in line. And I say that from experience and from research shows that, you know, but you're right. When you first implement that, you're going to have high numbers of kids because they're not going to take you seriously at first. But after a while, when they see that you're really firm about discipline and expectations and setting high standards for behavior, they'll comply. Because kids want structure, and the kids in school who want to get their lesson and do right, they want the adults to take over the school. They don't want the other kids running the school. They want the adults to run the school. And it's our job to make sure that happens.
They certainly want to be safe from other students who may want to bully them and so forth.
Yep.
They certainly want that safe environment. And you're right. 90% of students want to learn because they want to have an opportunity to grow and to be a productive human being. They want that opportunity and so forth. But then you do have that 10% that now some of that 10% doesn't even come to school. And then we have to try to deal with them in society. They're supposed to be in school, but they don't. And so we do have a societal thing also that we have to deal with, which is beyond the school environment.
Yeah.
I submit also that some of that does come into the school environment, and you got to find a way to deal with it. I understand you send people to alternative school or put them in a 30-day, situation. I think all schools need to have a security team or a couple of security teams also to make sure maybe, I don't know if your school does restraint, but I know all schools have a certain amount of restraint they may have to do.
Yeah.
So we should have very trained security teams that are able to restrain, but also working with counselors to be able to go to these homes where that at-risk student is, and be able to assist. Because I find a lot of situations where the student is causing the parent so much difficulty. And we have to have a situation where, okay, if we got to buy in for the parent, but he's being harassed by that child, we have to have a system that can come in and have some impact. Now you're getting into legal and all of that stuff, but at least have a situation where the counselor could come in and share, hey, your parent is trying to do this and she needs you to do this, and to work together so that we can all grow and have the best possible situation. So there's so many aspects, but I think that the threats of violence and those particular things are so impactful in this day and age. And that's why I think that security team is important, but also, and this is one of the discussions we had before, and I think we have to make where there's no possibility of mass shootings. I mean, all in all, it's not a prevalent thing, but one mass shooting is so impactful. So I think our campuses have to be so far away from the street where the parent or the child has to walk through, and then have a station where they come to first, and a security station, and then go into the school. Also, the fencing needs to be farther away. It can be done in a way that it is not so negative aesthetically, in my opinion. But we can't allow even one more mass shooting. I mean, we're never going to guarantee against them forever, but we can do a better job of that. What do you say about the aesthetics and the look, and how we can have a school that has that safe feeling, at least on the outside?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think we have to make our schools places where they're safe, and that means fencing. That means, checkpoints and security and things of that nature. So, and we do those things at the school I'm at now. Also it's about visibility. Like your security team and my security team makes up me, my assistant principals, my campus police officers, and also my hallway monitors. Like we're the campus security team. Our job is to keep the campus safe. So during arrival, we're all out in strategic places around the campus. During every transition, me and my people are out at every transition and at lunches. So at those times where there's transitions and there's common time, like we're out and about and visible. And not only that, we engage and interact with kids, because a lot of times the kids will tell you, hey, sir, like this guy's about to do something. And that is one of our strongest allies. But it's about building relationships. You can't build a relationship you in your office. You got to be out and about interacting with the peoples.
Now, I understand you are part of the security team at your school. However, at some schools, they have multiple fires going on. You got a fight over here, a fight over here. So you may need, and that's according to how you might can have a security team with 3 people on it, and then another one with 3 people, and 3 different teams and so forth. Everybody's security team may look differently, but I do know in a situation like in my school, we have multiple fires all at the same time, and you have to plan for that. You have to make sure you're prepared for that.
Yeah, and what I would say, schools that are having those things happen frequently in multiple places, there's breakdowns in your systems, because if you're putting people in places and you have secure systems, like those things don't happen like that frequently and all the time in multiple places. And also when they do happen, are you giving firm enough consequences? Once again, I go back to the example at my school. If you have one fight, you go on to the alternative school for 30 days minimum. I may do more depending on how much I feel like it disrupted the campus, so, and kids understand. And I tell them, I say, hey, if you fight, what's going to happen. They know, and they don't want to go to the alternative school because they're away from their peers. They have to wear a uniform, and they don't get to have their phones, like all the things that kids love. They don't get to do that for 30 plus days. So you have to make the
as you would agree,
severe
there's
enough.
Different schools that have different amounts of things going on. Maybe at your school, there's only a few fires. At another school, there may be multiple fires. So there's different situations. I want to come to this thing though. Dealing with respect and dealing with maintaining teachers, maintaining staff, a big thing is salary. I mean, if we had a starting salary and could afford a starting salary of $100,000, $150,000, there would be more people involved, because all the things that teachers have to do, it's a great deal of responsibility all the time. I mean, just the paperwork involved, and then the counseling, the standardized tests you have to keep up with, all of those particular things. I would submit a national lottery of some type for education would be something. Now, of course, the states can do that. Some states do that. But across the board, if there was really an emphasis on education, some type of educational supplement for the salaries would be able to take place, and you would improve education. I mean, it'd still be problems. I don't care if you paid us $1 million,
Right.
it would still be problems. But you would retain a few more teachers if that starting salary was 100,000, and then the higher salaries, which for experienced teachers start at about 300,000, and that would be a good thing. But again, that's not the thing that those in power in society want to emphasize on. Those in power, like Tillman Fertitta, he's going to buy the Rockets team, and he's going to spend his money on that. And then Mr. McNair is going to buy the Astros instead of putting their money into an educational system. One, maybe because it's so much politics, and I don't know any way to really get past that, because everybody has a way that they want to see things run. You know, you go back into critical race theory, some people are against it, some people are for it, and it's a cause for a big conflict in a lot of ways. So is it possible that we could have debate and then come up with a standardized curriculum that could be pleasing to everybody? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, before I answer that, I'm gonna go back to your last statement about, what happens in schools. I guarantee you the culture of your school determines whether or not you have problems. And so it could, any school can have problems, but based on how you create the culture in your school and systems determine whether or not your problems get you or you get your problems. So I just want to say that any school can have a school that right now that has a bunch of fights in it. If you build a culture and put the systems in place, you won't have a bunch of fights or a bunch of fires to put out. It's about the culture of your organization. Now, going back to the thing about you and I've talked about this before, my solution to improve public education is that you pay every starting teacher fresh out of college with her or his degree and certification a grand just starting out, 100 grand starting out.
Yeah.
And you add on 20,000 if you get your ESL certification or your special ed certification. You add on another 20 grand for each one of those, and you give them hellified training and support. And I guarantee if you do that, you're gonna get the best and brightest that join the field. Because right now, a lot of our best and brightest, they don't come to teaching because you can't sustain yourself, financially off of it with inflation and the cost of the rising cost of housing and healthcare. Like, I think you have some bright engineers and physicists that say, I'm not going to use my math and science degree to go do public school.
I would have to say, though, it's not just about the money. It's really about the respect. Yeah. And most, at least 50% of schools, they do have students that are calling them MF, every now and then and so forth. And, to try to put up with that for over and over, it wears on your mind, your spirit, and so forth. I think
I wouldn't be in a school as a teacher where even if I was making $150,000 or $200, somebody called me an MF every day and he showed back up in my classroom and nothing happened to him. I wouldn't work at a school like that. And we have to create schools where when kids do that, they got to get consequences. They can't be back in the classroom.
I really believe it's a bigger thing than just what can be taken care of on the school system environment that is political. It has to, a lot of the administrators and let's say the superintendents and those people who haven't been in school for a while in the classroom, they don't really have an accurate understanding of what teachers deal with.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that video.
No, I haven't seen that video.
Okay. Well, I wish I had it here to show, but when the lady took that young man's video game application thing, he came out in the hallway and he paralyzed her. He hurt her real bad. Wow. And it was all on video. And even if you feel the threat of that, it's gonna affect your spirit and your psychology and so forth. And if somebody sees that, they're gonna say, hey, I don't want to be in an environment like that. I'm gonna do something else.
I agree.
So you can't have a situation. And all across the country, there are different things that are happening in the classroom, and some schools, kids bring guns to school. I know you heard about the 6-year-old that brought the gun, shot the teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, for that to even happen, how did they get the gun in the school? Now, I don't know what kind of process, but who, as the elementary school, would be thinking that I'm going to have students coming in? Now, we want to protect people from coming off the streets with a grudge or something, but for a
I got a perfect solution that'll stop
6 years old with a gun.
I got a perfect solution that'll stop kids from bringing guns to school. You put the parents in jail. You'll stop school shootings overnight. Like if your kid bring a gun to school and shoot up people, you go to jail. You go to the prison. That'll stop. Suddenly parents will suddenly start locking guns up. Suddenly guns will magically get locked up and disappear. Watch it out.
Do you know in the case of Dylan Cleo and the other student that with the first mass shooting, the parents said that they did not know. Now that's a problem that they did not know, but they were to hold them responsible and to hold some parents responsible when they can't really contain that child.
That's a parent's job, though. That's a parent's job.
Yes.
That's a parent's job to know what's going on. I see it all the time
where the parent is having difficulty and they're at their wits' end with their child. That's why I come back to that security team with that counselor. Yeah. That you need to send that counselor to talk to that parent. How can we help you? Talk to that child. Hey, you're not supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to be assisting your parent, your mother, your father. And there are consequences or there are ramifications for not being able to work with your parents. But you also got to look at it, is the parent doing the right thing? Is the parent trying to do the right thing? Yeah. So I think we have to build a system where there's enough resources.
I agree.
For those parents, and then have somebody to go to the house with the resources, because I see it all the time. I had a parent that was very much crying about his disabled son is about 6'3", and he's autistic, but he barely can contain him. He can't contain him, and he would call me very upset, crying and upset. What can we do? Yeah. This young man is uncontainable and so forth. So there's a lot of situations like that. It's not as easy as blame the parent. We got to help the parent.
No, I'm not saying we don't help the parent, but in situations where parents are negligent, I think they need to be held accountable. And if you letting your kid build a bomb in his room and you say you don't know about it, I have a problem with that. That's negligence to me. And you need to be held accountable for that.
That is negligence.
If you're not locking up your guns, I'm all for having, I'm a gun owner myself. I'm all for guns. But if you're not locking, securing your guns and your kid gets to it and goes to shoot up the school, that's on the parent. That's negligent. I'm not talking about parents who genuinely are asking for help and need our support. That's what we're here for. That's our role. We should, and I love that part of my job. And I do that all the time with parents, where I become the therapist with the kid and the parent in situations a lot of times. And I'm not trained to be a therapist, but I can tell they're just a family in need. And I give that support the best I can and give them resources and connect them with resources in the community. That's what we do. That's in our nature as educators to do that. I'm talking about negligence.
We are
Negligence
with
needs to be
Dr.
held
Cleo
accountable.
Wadley. Very important discussion on education, the many different aspects of education. There's so many aspects. College is not, I guess, valued as much as it used to be, in my opinion. Also, so many students say, yeah, I don't want to go to college, you know. I think across the board, education is not as, now in our community, I still think it has a certain value, but with sports and so many things, it has a value, but less people, I think less students are going today. Now, I don't have the statistics about it, but I just see it so many things with the internet, with all of the different pressures, peer pressures, different kinds of influences. It's very difficult for kids to be able to concentrate. Now, my daughter is doing very well, better than I thought she was going to do. And you never know, you want to have that opportunity available. But I got one in college and then one that didn't want to, or excuse me, two didn't want to go to college. And so what can we do to make college, make education more appealing? Do we need to do more advertising as to the possibilities of education, or is that, you know, college's job?
Yeah, well, for one, I don't think college is for everybody. I think college is for a certain sect of individuals. I think what we have to do is create other avenues for kids, and whether that's, hey, I'm going to become, you know, a mechanic or automotive or a plumber or something like that, a computer programmer, like, you know, a culinary artist. I think we have to. That goes
back to when they took industrial education out of the schools. Do you all have industrial education at your school?
Yeah, well, now it's called CTE, which stands for Career and Technical Education. And we have a thriving program at my school.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we offer over 35 what they call IBCs, and that's a certifications kids get. Like, you can go to when you graduate from my high school, and it's a regular public K-12 school. It's not a special school or anything like that. You can leave with your certification being a phlebotomist, with being a culinary your culinary certification, so you could be a food manager. You can leave with your automotive. You can leave with your OSHA 30. So your drone license, like, so, and that's just a few. Well, you can learn
tell me that
drones. Go ahead.
What's the name of that again?
It's called CTE for short, but it stands for Career and Technical Education, and that covers fields such as your automotive, welding, culinary arts, floral design, agriculture, plant science, animal science. Like, all those programs are under the big umbrella called Career Technical Education.
How well is it received by the students?
Our kids love it. As a matter of fact, like you said, yeah, fewer kids are going into quote unquote traditional route like I did, like going to a 4-year, because they see that as a avenue where after you graduate, you can start making money the week after you graduate instead of going to a 4-year university. But then we have kids who, that's their thing. They're academically bent and they want to go to a 4-year university and follow that route. I think we just have to have multiple avenues to meet the needs of all of our kids.
I think that across the board, that is, see, HISD took out, as far as I know, they took out industrial education. That's what it was called. Yours is called Career and Technical.
Well, that's what the state of Texas calls it. So you're right. There was a time when, I think like in the 90s, when I first got into education, where you're right, the bent was about everybody going to college. That was like the focus. So you're right. Those programs pretty much got eliminated in the 90s and 2000s, but they've roared back since like the mid 2010s, 2015s, and now it's larger than ever now, and it's highly encouraged. Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, It's part of our accountability system. Like my school gets its school report card rating from the state based on how well we prepare kids in that arena of being college and career ready. So how many certifications kids leave my school with? Do I have kids going to the Army or going to the military? Do I have kids going to college? I get my school rating is based on how well I do those things.
That's very important, and that's a very good thing. I think across the board, nationally, I think that would be a good thing, and I think it would help education because kids have other avenues, and you're right. Some people don't, they just don't like the environment of sitting down and studying and going through all this rote memory stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's not for everybody. I agree. That's not for everybody.
Yes, it's not for everybody. Hi, Mary. Malika, how you doing?
It's actually Matria.
Huh?
I said my name is Matria. It's no longer Malika, so it's Matria.
Can
I'm
you
not
put
gonna-
that
I'm not-
spelling in the group in the chat?
No, just Mary Garrett will be fine.
Okay,
I'm
Mary
not,
Garrett.
I'm not gonna be on. I'm not gonna be on long because I have another Zoom at 8 o'clock. So
Okay,
I will.
well, we are discussing education, and I'd like you to share your opinion on education. We had the takeover happening. We've talked about school violence. How can we better prepare and work against school violence in these different times? Just share what you would like to share.
Okay, so I guess basically when you were talking about school violence, I think right now and the plight of education period is that we have a lot of students that's coming to school with a lot of social emotional issues. I mean, I guess in the past 10 years, I guess during COVID, or I guess even the period right now. And from what I see, well, the age group I work with is very real. And then we also have to make sure that the community is, we got to hold everyone accountable, even the child. Doesn't matter the age of the child, because I would say they all come to school with an empty suitcase. So at the end of the school year,
They
you
come to
want
school
them
with an empty what?
suitcase.
Okay.
So a lot
What
of
do you
them
mean, like a empty mind, and we need to fill it with good learning?
Well, yes. I mean, I just said an empty suitcase because they have, well, okay, an empty backpack, I guess you can put it like that. Because we have a lot of children that are coming in, not a lot, not all students, but we have a lot of students that come in with different issues. Like right now, the campus I'm at, I notice we have a lot of children that come in undiagnosed with different learning disabilities, if it's autism, is the ADHD, and so forth. Like a lot of my students are like in pre-K 4 now. So I know one particular student, he still has the same behavior issue, although he's I guess a teacher, he's a male teacher. So most of the students that were having like behavior issue, he has the student. So from what I gather, it's not really a whole lot that really changed. Sometimes admin, they would make excuses like, oh, well, his dad is this or his mom is that. Yeah, but someone is still taking care of that child. And then they always want to hold the teacher accountable. I can only do so much at the end of the day. I'm giving what I can give, but it kind of goes, both ways. You have children that's coming in screaming, yelling, throwing things, cursing, and it's like, oh my God. It's like, or the parent will be in denial. Well, the child doesn't act that way at home, but we already know that they do act like that at home. Or are they there or say something, oh, well, I spoil them too much. I say that's a problem. You don't have to spoil a child to give them everything they need. You give them what they actually need, not what they want. And then they come to school. It's a different learning environment. You want to teach them to show kindness, listen to other people, big voices, vice versa. You want them to respect. We always go about commitments, like our commitment is today to, use our walking feet, not running, because we don't want them to be harmed. Then we have a lot of children coming to school with speech problems. It's really getting really bad. It's like especially in our community, we have too many children they know how to operate the iPad, and it's like operate a phone. So there's no engaging, even if they're engaging in a educational, to like Coco. Let me see. I can't think of any right now, but it's just too many children coming to school, and then we have too many children are not being potty trained. That's just like that's another added thing. The parents, as parents, not all parents, some parents have excuses for everything. It's like, what are you doing? You just can't have a child and then bring them to school. So therefore, what I was saying, some children come to school with an empty backpack. So at the end of the school year, you want them to gather all that information so they can transfer the information to another grade level. And I really don't see that happening. I see a lot of parents, they complain about different things. Oh, she didn't do this and all that. Just too many nitpicking every day. But what are you doing as a parent? And it's not always the school, it's not always the teacher, it's not always the parent, but it goes both ways. As an educator and even being a parent, we know what's right and we know what's wrong. And sometimes parents are in denial because their child might have autism. Okay, well, there's a different spectrum of autism. My child might be this, but in the process, your child should not be in a contained class with other students. And then, students feed off of that, especially during a pandemic. It's like, oh my God, like it's just that in a nutshell. I know that's a lot, but that's what's going on in my age level. I mean, the upper grades, I'm not really for sure because basically everything, a foundation starts early. And if a child does not have that foundation between 2 and 5, if they're not getting from school, they're not getting from home, it's not gonna, look really well. It's just like, I'm just saying sometimes children are just taking up spaces, attendance is a big issue. We've been in school for what, 100 and I say 30 days, and you have students that have missed half of that because of different reasons. The parents, either they sick, they don't have transportation. But your child, when they come to school, it's like you have to start all over all the time. And I'm not saying it's all parents. There are some parents who want the best for their child, but we shouldn't just come when it's a field trip or when it's a program. You need to come engage, volunteer in the school. Ask the teacher, is something I can do. To me, that'd be a big help. But then from what I see, I don't know if y'all know Eddie B. He's from Houston. He's a former teacher. Even some of the videos he showed where students are actually they actually physically attack teachers. It's like, oh my goodness. And then you have the parents, just like I said, okay, I see why the child act like that. Respect, being an educator, it was like being respectful position in the community. So now it's like, the teachers don't really have any rights. The students and parents have more right. It's like, I pay taxes, and it's like, that's not right. Or they'll say, well, I pay your salary. No, you do not pay my salary, you know. But go ahead.
I just wanted to share, research. I was looking at a research about autism, and they said 1 out of every 59 children have autism. And that is just really, we're more aware of it now, but they said probably back in the day, it was the same thing. And, a lot of us as adults have autism. It's just society has changed so much. When we were coming up, we didn't have internet. You put a child in front of the the iPad at 2 years old, and then they see all of these different things. And so, and then the parent has so much stress also just trying to keep up with life. And so everything is sped up and so forth. And the kids are trying to deal with all of this. And as I was talking with Dr. Wadley, I mean, the respect that we have in the family, as well as the respect we have for teachers, has eroded also. And all of these things affect the schoolhouse. And so I think some different and more strengthening factors need to come into the schoolhouse. Did you want to comment, Dr. Wadley, on what she was saying?
Oh no, I agree with Sister Mary Garrett there with many of those things she said, that parents can't come to the school acting a fool. At my school, if you come to the school cussing out my front office staff or my teachers, like, I criminally trespass you. I have the officers write you a criminal trespass ticket where you can't come on campus for 2 years. So we're very serious about that kind of, and so as a result, we don't have those kind of problems. I guarantee you, if we took ownership of the schools and set the standard, parents will behave better because they know what the consequences are. Kids will behave better because they know what the consequences are. People act a fool because there's no boundary. You just have to put boundaries in place and make people respect them, and you'll have safe schools. So I go back to it takes superintendent school board to say, we're going to empower our teachers and our principals and administrators, our campus people, to make that school work and be a healthy, safe place. If they do that, we won't have problems with schools.
But the reason that they don't do it is because it's hard to keep teachers. One, respect, not enough money, too overwhelmed with responsibilities of paperwork. Do you find that, Mary Garrett?
I really do. I mean, it's like now we're getting in the process of doing common assessment. We just come off from spring break, so it's like really, it's no downtime, for anything. It's like constant from the time you get there to the time you leave. And then, parents, well, I'm not saying all parents don't care, but I think in society, they don't realize that teachers do stay late. And, they do have a family. So when they say, oh, you get the summers off, not all teachers, you have to do summer school, you have to do training, and then you still have to prepare for the next school semester. But I would honestly say that having a relationship with your child's teacher, regardless if you like them or not, the same parent I'm talking about, her child has autism. And it's like, oh my God, last year I had children with serious behavior issues, and all those students are still in this particular teacher classroom in pre-K4. But you don't know, like, she said, oh, well, her energy is off because I asked you a question, whatever. So, I guess she said that I was being rude, I was disrespectful, because I said, well, no, it's like, I'm glad you bring him to school so he can have a structured environment. Well, she took the mean like, he don't have a structure. Well, it's not structure at home. Obviously, we can tell that it's not. But he has, improved. He know how to do certain things, and it's like he knows how to take off his own diaper. And it's like, okay, we celebrate that. But she still have another student that's in pre-K4, which she has to leave home. She has to leave. Um, I don't know. She just got a lot of stuff going on, and sometimes parents don't realize, even though if you're a first time parent, a second time parent, you want to give your child everything. What they need is love and nurturing. It's like, oh yeah, and they will admit, say, well, I'm the reason, like, but you want to say it's me. And sometimes parents have to, excuse me, take ownership of their actions. I mean, parents are, when parents say they have stress, well, stress is part of life. And the same issues that are going on now, it's always been there. But it's just like you do have other people to assist you, whatever it is you need to do. And it's like now schools have to use more resources because, X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z is in place. And, for us, like communication, our form of communication is Class Dojo.
I
There's
love
no
that.
reason why, there's no reason why if I text you, email, call you, and still put the information on Class Dojo, they still don't read. It's like, I don't understand. It's like, you don't read. We want it, they want everything instantly. Like, everything is a process. Just like your child learning how to write and how to socialize with other students. It's part of it's a process, and you can't rush the process. I have empathy for her because she does have a child, with different learning ability, but it's not saying he can't learn. Or, I try to put myself in that place, but then it's like, okay, you know what? Even the issues I had with my daughter, it's like, okay, well, I had a it goes back to having relationships because trust me, I knew the principal, I knew her counselor. It's all about relationship, and you can't come in being negative because if you being negative and hostile, people will listen, but when they have a true relationship with you, they're gonna treat your child different. That I do know, and they don't understand it. So, but
What would
is
you
there?
say are the
Mhm.
most pressing issues in education? Sounds like you are saying rapport, building rapport, but that's very hard in today's educational setting. But what would you say is the most important things that for education overall?
I think what's more important that teachers are supported, by their administration, not, for them to listen. If you know you had a teacher working with you for 5 years and you just going by what the parents say, oh, you this and this and that, it starts with the leadership. You know, teachers have enough to do, educators have enough to do. It doesn't matter if it's a custodian, bus driver, janitor, it's all one thing. We all have different roles, but it starts with the administration, how they interact with parents and vice versa, and also how they support their teachers. Sometimes you can have more support and no support at all. It's kind of like,
Are you saying that you've encountered a situation where the parent, excuse me, the administration backs the parents over the teachers?
sometimes they do. I just know one instance, this one particular child, um, the mom, for whatever reason, she thought I'm the one that did we were doing an activity, week of the young child, and I didn't really have anything to do with that. But that person was out of the country. So I took the backlash. And she kind of threatened me. And it's like, oh no, you're not gonna. I said, if you threaten me, I will have to call the police. And then she brought her son in and she was asking some questions. But then at the end of the day, it wasn't true. But I didn't feel like I was supported because I said this woman was talking to me inappropriate and I had to leave. I said, you know what, I'm getting ready to go because I'm not gonna sit here and have you to talk to me any kind of way because I'm not a child. I'm an adult. And they didn't stop the situation. So I kind of lost respect after that, that instance. So until parents find until parents find out exactly what happened, you would go straight to the administration instead of come talking to me because
Right.
children do lie. But they say, oh, my child never lies. They lie all day long.
Right.
And it's like, no, no. So after that incident, I just kind of, even though she's still my supervisor, I just lost respect for her.
Mm.
And like, you didn't stop it or anything. I just said, well, if you touch me, I will have to call the police. And I
Wow.
left after that. So, just little instances like support your teachers, support them during their meeting, and then you can have another conversation afterwards. But sometimes it don't always be that way. But I think as teachers, teaching has changed even within the pandemic, but the things that happened during the pandemic, why is it a surprise? I mean, that's been going on. It's like, it's been going, it shouldn't take a pandemic for everybody to wake up. Oh, this was going on. Yes, it's been going on a while. You just not, because it wasn't your concern, it wasn't your problem. So, but overall, I do feel hopeful that things will be changing, and I hope change for the better, and that students that do come to school, they're engaged, they're very loving, they talk more about you than they talk about their parents. So, you know, and that's a good thing, especially if a child, you my friend, I work with the little people. So, it might be a little different. But there are students who are doing excellent. I mean, parents are doing awesome jobs to support their children. They come there whenever it's a, field trip, it's an activities going on, and what can I do? Oh, okay, well, I'm just letting you know that so and so knows it's running. Oh, okay, well, thank you for letting me know that because I've been working on getting. So it's just information and relationships. and collaboration. If you don't have relationship and collaboration and communication is the most important thing. You know, that can really add a hindrance to school. You know, you want to have structure, but you don't want to be like, no, in this sense, you have to have structure. You have to protect your campus because people come in all kind of different mindsets, and it's like you'd be surprised, but it's like because I have to come protect it every day. So.
I just wanted to say this, Mary, that I've worked for 13 principals, and they all had different personalities and different, I guess, levels of strength and tolerance. And I think across the board, you know, you're going to have some good ones and some bad ones. But a question I have is, should we as teachers have limited immunity, you know, like police officers and so forth, where, you know, we are, you can't mess with us in certain ways. What do you think about that, Dr. Wadley?
Yeah, well, on a certain level, schools, we do have a form of qualified immunity and so forth. So like, you know, I've had parents tell me like, I'm gonna sue you. I was like, you can't, I have qualified immunity. Yeah, like, you can't sue me. I get that all the time because, you know, it's a kid that I had a kid just last week, he had, you know, marijuana on campus. Well, he has to go mandatory. He has to go to the alternative school, and the parent, you know, didn't want the kid to go to the alternative school. The parents said they were going to sue me. I was like, you can't sue me. I have immunity. You know, if I'm not acting out of some kind of gross negligence, I have immunity. So I think it's about educating, you know, our community and parents about the roles of schools and the power schools have around those kind of things with policy. I think a lot of times parents don't understand policy. Like this parent thought that it was all right for the kid to have weed at school. Just because it's all right for the kid to have weed at your house don't mean it's all right for the kid to have weed at school or come to school high. He said, you can't, he smoked before he came to school. Well, but he was under the influence at school. That's a violation of law and the Texas Education Code. You can't do that. So there's consequences for that. So to me, it's an ongoing thing about educating the parents as well and educating our kids about things. You know, case in point, you know, kid drive the car to school with a bottle of tequila rose in it. Well, the drug dogs hit on that, and so he had to go for 30 days. And the parents I said, well, you know, that was my car. I said, yeah, it may have been, but you know, it was in his possession when he brought it on campus. Possession is 9/10 of the law, so he has to serve the penalty for that. And they said they were going to sue me, and I hadn't been sued yet. I've been over my 28-year career, I've been threatened to be sued many times, and I've been yet to be sued because I always act within policy and the law and in the best interest of kids. And as long as we do that, you know, we'll be protected.
What do you say about different personalities of leadership? She's talking about, it sounds like you support your staff. She's talking about not getting supported. I've been in situations where the principal, she went and talked to the student and got the student's word with the student lied, and then she come and talking to me, and you know, it was a conflict.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. You do have principles of different skills and weaknesses and styles and so forth. That's definitely true, just like in any other field of leaders. You know, you got politicians with different leadership styles and ways of move. You got physicians, you got architects, you know, so no different from school leaders as well. My philosophy is that with my teachers is that if I hired you, I trust you and your expertise. If I didn't believe in that, I wouldn't have hired you. And my thing is, when there's a complaint against a teacher, my thing is that I trust my teachers, you know, and I have the relationship with my teacher where if they mess up, they'll say, you know what, Dr. Wiley, hey, I did mess that up. And I'm gonna support the teacher through that and coach them up for the next situation. That's all about the relationship. And my teachers will be honest with me and say, yeah, I did do that. And then we talk about that and we deal with it, you know, the right way. And I always try to make it a coachable and a teachable moment because I look at myself as being the head coach of the team. And if I got good people, they're not always going to make the right play, but my job is to coach them up for the next time that situation come up. And, you know, and that's how you build people and that's how you make good schools.
Sounds great. Mary, Garrett, we are toward the end of our show. I would like to hear your last comment. What is the state of schools? Do you plan on staying in teaching? Or would you refer somebody else to come into the teaching field?
Honestly, I'm still thinking about it. So it's not really just students. I mean, students gonna come to school with different challenges, but I just think sometimes you have to make changes. It could be still in the education field, but you know, it's some, well, I do know of a couple of people, they put in their resignation during spring break. So I think their last day would be like next Friday. And it's just a lot. And it's like there's no leeway in anything, no matter what, get the job done. Or you have other people who put their, oh, this is what I would do, but I'm not you. And you know, it's I think it's time to make a change. I'll see, but I'm kind of leaning towards, leaving. So it's, I have done my time. I did all that I can do. And, the, where I work at, just everything has just really changed. And it's like, and, you have high turnover, and you see why. And, people have to make a decision, but the short answer is that I enjoy education, but I think at this point it's time to do something different in education. So maybe
That's understandable.
working with the families, working with, getting them what they need, because if we didn't have students, we wouldn't have a job. Well, not job, we wouldn't be employed, I'm sorry. So that's all I can say right now. Is just those who are in the area, you know, um, just do what they can do, and just, love on the students, even the ones that you might not like, and the ones that you do love. It's just come open with a positive um attitude, and that, just know that you are touching someone's lives, even though they're little, but they still remember you. Like, for instance, I have a student that's just graduated last year. I have one that's graduating this year. So, she still remember me, and that makes my heart feel happy, that if you see someone that you taught a few years ago and they're doing well, and they come back and say thank you, and, I did my job. Yes.
So there is some fulfillment. I know I've been at teaching 30 years, and I've had students come back and show me their child, their young one. And so
Right.
I've had that occasion to happen. And if you stay in this industry long enough, you will have some fulfillments. You'll have some things that you say, yes, I did something good here. So it has some strong points, and there are some very difficult times in teaching. But overall, it's one of the most important things in our society, and society has to make a effort to enhance it, strengthen it, and make it better. We're at the end of our show, and I thank you, Mary Garrett, for joining us. Dr. Wadley, as always, we're going to have another one on April 6th. Very important discussion. We're going to have more issues and talk about more things. Very important. Did you have a final word you wanted to say, Mary?
Oh no, just thank you. I just got off another Zoom about dealing with what's going on with TEA and HIC. So it's gonna
Yeah,
be,
we discussed that.
oh yeah, I did. I missed it.
TEA and all that happened with that. And in a lot of ways it's political. What did your panelists that you had that discussion with, what was their standpoint?
Well, just one of the members, she will be completing her application as a manager. We actually had someone that used to work with TEA. I wasn't able to listen to all of it, but I just feel that as a community, there was no reason why we had certain schools that were failing like for 9 years, 10 years, 11 years. So everyone has to take responsibility. The principal, the principal, the admin of that school, also, I don't know what they call area superintendents and the superintendent, and also the board. You know, you can't just say you just only concerned about your dish, your section of piece. I mean, you have to be, you have to care about all the students, not just one group of students. And that I'm pretty sure, since HISD knew that TA was going to take over, I don't understand how we have schools that are being an F and a D. To me, that's unacceptable. Even a C, a 70, that's barely passing. So that means that HIC have a lot to do. The community have a lot to do. It's not just HIC, it's the community. Because we need to stop sending our students to certain schools because they play baseball, softball, or volleyball, because I'm pretty sure they are recruited to go to those certain schools. But then if we have everyone leaving the community to go to another school, what's going to happen to this school? You know, attendance, you know, fights, you know, threatened against the teachers. So all that embody how our students will, you know, how they going to perform in society. As you can tell, it's really sad. So, you know, that it's, you know, everything happened for a reason. You know, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. You know, who knows? It's just that we can't just go in and just scream and holler and yell. We have to have some type of organization. Everything is about money and it's about power. We don't have the power. We might not have the money, but we have the power and come in to be organized, ready to listen, have them to listen to whatever our agreements are. Not just, you can't follow everyone that's screaming and yelling, because that's just like fire, and there's no fire. So we'll see. You know, they talked a little bit about Harold Dutton. Well, maybe at the time he was on, I mean, some people said, you know, he shouldn't have. Well, it's done, but you know, something had to be done. Just, I mean, HIC knew all these schools were failing. So really the board, they kind of failed the students. You know, they just need to have more of cohesion and more collaboration, not just about your individual part of Houston, but all of Houston. So that's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Yeah, we had talked about that it's a political thing also. But anytime you have factions bickering and a principal gets fired and gets rehired by a community and back and forth, you are kind of opening the door to different things. So, and like you said, if the school is kind of together, it wouldn't have been an opening for, or the district is kind of together, it wouldn't have been an opening for TEA to come in or the politicians to say it needed to be taken over. We at the end, did you want to make a final comment, Dr. Wadley?
Yeah, sure. Just want to say that public schools are the bedrock of our democracy. It is the only thing that's going to keep us away from the fascists and people who feel like they can go and take over the Capitol and disrupt government and our society. And it's important that our communities get behind our schools, our superintendents and our school boards, give the power to our teachers and our campus administrators to do it, to trust them to do what they need to, because those people know on the campus level what it takes to make those schools healthy and functional. And if that happens, then our schools can be places that are safe for kids, teachers, and for our community. And that's how we'll make the world a better place.
I agree with that. This is the Sourceseeker Hour, our episode 127. I'm Baruti Carl Alexander. We will continue this discussion on the next episode, which will be April the 6th. We will have more discussion about education. Very important. As you said, it's the bedrock of our democracy. It is, because if it's happening in schools, or if it's happening in society, it's happening in school. So it is like a microcosm or a show of the world that we live in. And we got to make it stronger, better, and do a better job to help have a safe environment and a healthy environment for our kids. I'm Baruti Carl Alexander. We at the end of our episode. We thank you. We'll see you next time. Blessings.
All right, good night.
Everybody.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.